back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions with Week 8. Last week was not a good week, probably my worst performance ever. I went 14-11, which put my total season up at 109-42. Now, it's hard to believe that we only have 5 more weeks left into the season. That is shocking to believe. It was just like yesterday when we started. But anyway, on to the onslaught. We're going to start off with Georgia Tech traveling to Boston College to take on the Eagles. And both teams had bye weeks last week. Although the last time we saw Georgia Tech, they were caught stealing a victory from Miami. All because Mario Cristobal is an idiot. I do think Georgia Tech is the better team in this game. And I do believe that they're going to win. And hey, Georgia Tech got some momentum ahead of them. Follow that up with another pair of teams who had bye weeks. We have the UCF Knights taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. And remember the last time we saw Oklahoma, they won the final Big 12 edition of the Red River Rivalry at the very last second. Oklahoma now has a path to the postseason. Texas do too, but Oklahoma's path is more clearer than Texas since they beat them. And they could be feeding off that momentum. I'm going to think Oklahoma wins the game, but I do sense a trap. This could be a possible trap game for Oklahoma. Follow that up with Mississippi State, also coming off a bye, taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are on a 5-game losing streak this season. Don't get me wrong, Arkansas is better than what their record indicates, because last week they almost pulled off a late rally against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But Bama was able to, fortunately for Bama, they were able to run off the clock and win the game. Mississippi State, I think, yeah, like I said, they had a bye week last week. Not much to be said. This game, because I said Arkansas is better than what the record indicates, I do think they're going to end their losing streak against Mississippi State. But I won't be surprised if the Bulldogs win this game. Follow that up with the Baylor Bears taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. And don't remember I know Baylor might have had a bye week last week. And Cincinnati, who knows? I think they also was idle last week as well. These are two of the bottom dwelling teams in the Big 12. But I still have some faith in the Cincinnati Bearcats in winning this game. I think they'll get the win. And hopefully they can get their season back on track. Follow that up with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. Rutgers is 5-1 in the season. They coming off a come-from-behind win over Michigan State. Meanwhile, Indiana scored the first 7 points against Michigan and proceeded to give up 52 straight afterwards. I think this game is going to be a really tightly contested match. I am going to pick Rutgers to win. I do want them to get to the 6 wins and become bowl eligible because a program like them needs that. Let them know that they're going in the right direction. Next we have is the Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. Now both of these teams are coming off of interesting games. Oklahoma State, they beat Kansas at home, in which for once Kansas was the better team. Meanwhile, West Virginia, they're coming off a tough Hail Mary loss to Houston. And that was like on a Thursday or Friday. So for this game, this one can go in any direction. I do think it's going to be a good game. However, I am going to stick to the home team and take West Virginia to win. Follow that up with Washington State taking on the Oregon Ducks. In the Cougars, they got destroyed at home by Arizona. They only scored 6 points at home to Arizona. Maybe Arizona's better than what people think. Meanwhile, Oregon, they tried to go for the kill against Washington. I actually agree with them on doing it, but it was executed bad. That led to a go-ahead Washington touchdown, and Oregon proceeded to miss the field goal. And like I said last week, that was a game someone just had to lose. Because Oregon, they put up a fight in that one. And I do think they're going to feed off of that fight and get the win over Washington State. Because right now, the Cougars, they're on a downswing. Follow that up with the third Saturday in October. I think it's the third Saturday, and it is the third Saturday in October, where the Tennessee Volunteers, almost called them Orange, taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama, last week, they nearly blew it against Arkansas. And meanwhile, Tennessee, they used their defense to take care of Texas A&M. I think this game, this is a wild, weird one to predict because on hindsight, Bama should win. And thanks to their defense, Tennessee, there have been times where Tennessee has not looked like the Tennessee we know. But you know what? I'm actually going to go with an upset. I'm going to roll with the Volunteers to win in Tuscaloosa to beat Alabama. And that will probably eliminate Bama in the postseason play. Let's be real, they're not going to make it anyway. Follow that up with Northwestern taking on Nebraska. And both of these schools were under bye weeks. Although Nebraska got a pretty good road win last time I saw them against Illinois. I think this game, I think we're going to find out what Nebraska is really capable of in this one. I am going to go with the Cornhuskers to win over Northwestern. But Northwestern, they will give it a good fight. Follow that up with South Carolina taking on the Missouri Tigers. South Carolina lost in the last second against Florida. Meanwhile, Missouri, they got a road win over Kentucky. A game that I believe they was trailing at one point late in the second half. In this game, yeah, Missouri has been a very sneaky team in the SEC this year. I am going to go ahead and pick them to win. As for South Carolina, things are not looking good for that school. I'll say that. Follow that up with the Wisconsin Badgers taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini. And Wisconsin's coming off a tough loss against the Iowa Hawkeyes. A game that pretty much was going to decide who was going to win that division in the Big Ten. We got Illinois coming off a bye week, but after losing to Nebraska. But here's what I learned about Wisconsin. Their starting quarterback is hurt. I think he had like a hand injury. He didn't play much in that Iowa game. And because of that, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Illinois to win. But I won't be surprised if Wisconsin finds a way. And speaking of Iowa, we got the Hawkeyes taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And I'm going to keep this brief. I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa to win. Mostly on defense alone. And then we have the Pitt Panthers taking on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. And this is Wake Forest's homecoming. For Pitt, they got a great win over Louisville. A Louisville team that was once 6-0. They're now 6-1. In Pitt, they found out that Phil Jurkovec has a role on the bench. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, they're also a school in a downward spiral. Third loss in a row, getting destroyed in Virginia Tech, not scoring on offense. They look like the Wake Forest of old, before Dave Clawson. Like, what's going on? But this game is at home, and Pitt being not the best team in the ACC, this one is a bit of a toss-up. But I'm going to give the slight edge over Pitt to win this game. And it boils down to Wake's inability on offense. Follow that up with the Hook'em Horns, Texas Longhorns, traveling to Houston to take on the Cougars. And Texas, we saw what they did 2 weeks ago. They lost that game, but in my opinion, they should have lost by more than what they did. They had a lot of turnovers. turnover on downs, and Quinn Ewers was not his best self in that game. Meanwhile, Houston, they had a miracle win over West Virginia on a Hail Mary. I think this game, I think Texas will bounce back to get the win. Luckily, they had the bye week to figure things out, and they're going to come back, and they're going to come back in full force. Follow that up with the North Carolina Tar Heels hosting the Virginia Cavaliers. And let's be real, North Carolina is the better team. I'm taking the Tar Heels to win pretty much by a huge margin. And you want to know what's crazy? They're ranked ahead of Alabama. That's pretty impressive for the Tar Heels. And that leads us to Ole Miss taking on the Auburn Tigers. Ole Miss coming off a bye week. And meanwhile, Auburn, I think they got destroyed by somebody. I can't remember who it is. I can't remember who they lost to last week. They might have had a bye week too, but it was LSU. It was LSU who they got destroyed by. I think this game is going to be very, very close. And you know what? I'm also going upset here. I'm going to roll with the Auburn Tigers to beat Ole Miss in this one. Then we have the rematch of the Big 12 championship game of last year, where TCU Horned Frogs taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. And I'm going to go ahead and take Kansas State to win. I do like their offense a little better than TCU's this year. Don't worry, TCU is pretty much, they're suffering through a hangover part in their season. I'm just going to roll with Kansas State. Then we have Texas Tech taking on BYU, the Cougars. And I'm going to go quickly. I'm just going to pick BYU to win. They're at home. And Texas Tech doesn't have their quarterback. I'm going to roll with BYU. Follow that up with a pretty big game in the ACC, where the Duke Blue Devils, yes, the Duke Blue Devils, traveling to Florida State to take on the Seminoles. Duke last week took care of North Carolina State. It was a bounce back victory. They did not have their starting quarterback Riley Leonard. Meanwhile, Florida State, they also bounced back against, well, even though they won, they got a win over Syracuse, which they only gave up 3 points. That's pretty good. But in this game, I do not expect a lot of scoring because Duke has a good defense. But if Riley Leonard doesn't play, Florida State will pretty much dominate in this one. But if he does play, it will just be closer than what people think. Follow that up with the Michigan Wolverines taking on the Michigan State Spartans. And usually this game is like the ghost of Harbaugh's past, because he usually can't beat Michigan State. Some way, somehow, the Spartans find a way to beat the Wolverines. And even though the Spartans are down, I do expect the Spartans to give it all they have against Michigan. But since I do believe Michigan is the best team in the country, I think they take care of them. But this will be the first game. I'll say this. This will be the first game Michigan will give up 2 touchdowns. I'm going to put that out there right now. Follow that up with the Pac-12 championship rematch between the Utah Utes taking on USC Trojan Knights. Utah got a win over California. And USC, they lost to Notre Dame at home. And Caleb Williams did not look good in that game. He threw 3 interceptions. And the problem with SC is their lack of defensive efficiency. And it's been a problem. It was a problem last week. It's been a problem all season. It caught up to them against Notre Dame. But I do believe in this game, SC should get over the hump and beat Utah in this one. But if Utah wins, oh boy, SC Nation will not be happy. Then we have Clemson traveling to Miami to take on the Hurricanes. And Clemson had a bye week, but last I saw them, they won a low-scoring game against Wake Forest. And Miami, 2 losses in a row. Although they did give it a good fight against Carolina in the first half at least. This is a 2-game losing streak. And Can you believe that their momentum was killed by their coach not taking a knee against Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago? I'm still not over that. But with rest, I am gonna go with Clemson to win this game. They're well rested. They took the bye week to figure things out. And Miami, same old Hurricanes. Same old Hurricanes. Follow that up with the Arizona State Sun Devils taking on the Washington Huskies. Washington with one of its biggest wins in program history, beating the Oregon Ducks on national television with College Game Day in the audience. Michael Penix, he's now leading the Heisman race as I predicted. In Washington, they're now 5th in the country. I've been very impressed with what they've been putting out. Meanwhile, Arizona State, I don't really know much about this school. I don't know much about their actions. They might have had a bye week last week. But I do sense a bit of a trap game here. Because Washington, coming off a huge victory, they're pumping up their chest right now. And Arizona State, I won't be surprised if they go up 10-0 on them. That's how I see it. But Washington's just too good on offense for that to happen. I'm a huge fan of Michael Penix. I'm going with the Huskies to win. And then quickly we're going to go over UCLA and Stanford, which I do think UCLA's defense has been impressing me this year. I'm going with the Bruins over Stanford. Although Stanford did beat Colorado, I guess that counts for something. And that takes us to the game of the week. The Penn State Nittany Lions traveling to Columbus to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Penn State, they had pretty much a win over a no-name school last week, so they should be feeling okay about themselves. Meanwhile, the Ohio State Buckeyes, they got a huge road win over Purdue. And you could count their offense, they're beginning to settle in. The defense, that defense is very good for Ohio State. And they've been winning a lot of games for them this year. But for Penn State, this will be a perfect game to show the world where they're at as a program. This is like a perfect. This will be like this is their first big test of the season, and I'm not counting their other tests where they have to go to Michigan to take on the Wolverines. But for this game, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Ohio State in this one. Only because I trust them on defense, and I think Drew Allard, which I have been liking him in Penn State, he's going to make a few mistakes in this one, and that will probably cost Penn State. So, tell me what y'all think about this in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.